think I'll start with a couple of questions, but start getting ready with yours if you have. Probably I'm going to start with Rafael. You mentioned challenges of attracting ML talent. Even you're a very cool company, and I'm sure a lot of scientists and engineers want to work with you. Can you please explain and tell us a little bit more about your team and the challenges and how many people, what's the problem of attracting talent for your company?
Great question, Paco. I think it's linked with what Mario told soon about the why we're doing what we do. This works both for why you're training models, but why you're using these models, because AI cannot be an end in itself. It's just a means to something. And when we tie that to purpose, to help people to impact, this helps to attract talents. I see that people that are in the universities, they really want to implement stuff in the real life, so this helps to attract talent. The strategy that we did is by raising research and development grants and partnering with universities. Each of those projects, we raised 15 of those so far. For example, the last one that we raised is a $1 million project through the São Paulo Research Foundation. Each of those projects, we bring a PhD. This one came from France to work with us. And we give this grant so he can lead. So he has a budget, he can hire people with that, but at the same time, since it's tied to a project with business goals, we can keep their feet on the ground because the PhDs like to fly. So we need them to be free enough to explore, and they need this freedom, but at the same time, this needs to be attached to business goals in the way that they feel empowered and they feel that what they are doing, there is meaning and they're impacting people. So this helped a lot to attract talent. And when we talk about doctors, which also for us was hard in the beginning because I'm young and I go talk to neurosurgeons and stuff like that, was very important to embed the machine learning on their workflow. So not changing their workflow, like you work like that, and with these machine learning models, the emergencies will be prioritized. And then the fear decreased a little, but they were still afraid. And then they started to use it. And then one thing they're doing right now as well is that when the doctor diagnostic doesn't match the algorithm prediction, for example, algorithm predicts cancer, doctor clicks normal, the system sent to 3 other doctors and create a board of consensus. So now they're not afraid of the models anymore. They feel that it's making the safer. So even if they commit a mistake, other 3 doctors are gonna see it. It's a blind test, they don't see the prediction, but they feel safer to use it. So the question of adoption is very key, both in the machine learning talent and the physicians in our case.
Thanks. Maybe some other startups want to talk about the talent, Julian or Pilar. How about for you? Well, how difficult is it?
Well, it's super difficult. We're a very small team where we have, well, I think that it's a great team, but it has been very difficult to have good people in our team, and it is, yeah. We had a Turkish girl in our team because in Mexico we didn't find a person. Yeah, I know. We didn't came here for next time. We're gonna do, but we didn't find that. We also have a data scientist in Brazil. We have Martin here, a great talent as well. But yeah, it is difficult, and it's difficult, as you said, to get people that are actually have the intersection in how be creative in one point, but at the same time be down to earth to what you have to solve.
Thank you. Carmen, probably for you. During the development of such different projects in so many areas, have you found some common challenges for all of these companies, problems, projects?
I think every project has its own challenge, since like they have like a different focus, right? A computer vision project is different, a machine learning project, but we do have some, like, generally speaking, problems. Like when it comes to projects, generally speaking, it requires a lot of organization, especially when people from so many areas start to work together, and in projects, like, you have a budget, you have time, and you usually have to meet that. Also, you have clients' expectations, so putting it all together is like a really interesting mix. So basically we developed like a methodology, how to work, how to make those processes work and be as fast and efficient as we can be.
Thank you. This one probably for Julian. Very similar to the problems that Rafael was facing with the already trained models in the United States with state-of-the-art machines, etc. Tell us a little bit more about the problem with the language. How challenging it has been for you to work with models in Spanish versus English?
Oh yeah, so I talked a little bit about it in the presentation, and yeah, so the things that are pre-built often do not work out of the box. There are some like APIs that try to help you, and they are good as a baseline. But in general, I mean, it's interesting. It's a good challenge to get things to work, not only in Spanish as a whole, but in different kinds of Spanish. And so some tools that work are the ones that I talked about in the talk, and I also like to point out that in the end, there's no like fixed solution. You end up relying on ensembles, so there's different sorts of problems that you can categorize, like misspellings or regionalisms and whatnot, and different algorithms end up working better for different problems, so you end up ensembling different solutions. That happens, as happens in many other machine learning domains.
Thanks. Probably for Carlos, working at such a large organization as GMP, working with these interesting new models like AutoML, has that make any impact on the culture and the rest of the company? Are they seeing you as the enemy? Are you going to displace them? What's the general feeling at such a large company? I wonder.
Well, it's very difficult. There are like in many companies there are profiles that are more like digital biased. So there is like this pitching, you know, that you need like to convince people that it has a lot of value and they're not in risk for like in this place. You know? We're enabling, like, you know, we're like trying to give more like free time to analyze, to make some better jobs. No? We're not trying like this. In a sense, we're not like engaging this technology with the fear side of Joshua. No? Says, okay, we have a lot of danger zones, and we have to be very careful about it. But yeah, it's a lot of transformation, digital transformation, and digital like culturalization. But yeah, it has a lot of impact. You have like workflows that are literally days, not human, like or human days, because the tools are very old, Excels and little machines. You know, so it's a big shift. It's a big shift, and there is a lot of media, you know, that improves that experience, and it's very important. Be careful with that.
Thanks. For Carlos, I wonder, you being a lecturer here at UNAM and working on these AI projects, I have just 2 questions for you. Octavio, what did I say? Did I say Carlos? Sorry. I meant Octavio. Working with amazing students here at UNAM and with these interesting AI projects, how you connect all the dots, the needs from the market, you are creating amazing solutions at Synthia, AI-based. Are students trying to get into that? Are they willing, or what's the issue there?
Well, there's all sorts of people, you know. There is people that are scholarly driven, so they do not care too much for industry and people just to gather knowledge for the knowledge person. But there is also a lot of people, especially many engineers, that are looking to get a just to get a good job. So they use this as a tool of knowledge for the curriculum to get a nice curriculum and have a good job. And there is also this kind of people that they want to work in artificial intelligence because they love artificial intelligence and they want to give artificial intelligence to people. No? So yes. So how can I connect the dots? Well, I am meeting more and more business and enterprises. I can tell my students that you can go there and you can try and make an exam, so you can go there. No? So especially the better students is obviously the most that I recommend to go there. No?
Thank you. Okay, last one from me, and then I will pass the microphone to you. This one for Leslie. Coming from Bolivia, which is one of the probably the smallest in terms of startups and ecosystem advancement in the region, what motivates you and what would you recommend us to better connect the communities, the talent across the region? Because I think coming from Silicon Valley company and looking at the region, there's not a single city or country in Latin America that looks super attractive. The region as a whole, it's amazingly rich and it's super attractive. How can we connect better this talent we have through the communities and the startups and the universities and the world?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that because it's a very interesting point. I started on machine learning AI when I did my master's in Belgium. So that's why I got like so excited and doing a lot of stuff. When I was back to Bolivia, I was talking about data science and models. Nobody understood, and it was like, oh man, yeah, we need to do something. So for me, the good point was to start with the local communities, tech communities, mainly GDGs, the Google Developer Groups, and also giving talks at universities, trying to connect as much people inside the cities, so to teach them, so to see what kind of projects they are working on. And then I found these international organizations that even if they are in the US or Europe, you get to know people from different places in Latin America. And I think that's the interesting part, because actually we are now not only organizing our meetups or strategies with Europe, we are organizing ourselves as Latin America. And that's why also I got this title as coordinator, which is new and nice, because I get to meet the ecosystem directly and try to see different people, what they are doing. I know other people that are working on chatbots, now I can connect you. So I think we need more people involved into these communities and trying to connect each other with each other. And as you mentioned, as LATAM is more attractive, because as you can see, there are a lot of talent, there are a lot of projects. And if we said, we have this kind of NLP projects in different countries in Latin America, we have this talent, so that looks even more attractive to the whole world.
Okay, now I'm passing the microphone. Questions? Okay, I see a lot of hands.
So my name is Karina Martinez. Thank you. Hi, my name is Karina Martinez. I'm a researcher here in the Institute of Chemistry. So I'm very happy to be here, and I want to acknowledge all the people involved for putting together RIIAA and all the panelists. So I've had the opportunity to work in industry and also in the academia, and I know how difficult it is to fill the gap between the two. So I want to ask you, if you had a chance to ask a student, what do you need to train for getting involved in AI? What do you say? Do you think the person has to be like in the computing sciences, or more like in hard science, like chemistry or biology?
Well, actually, my bachelor is in humanities, so you can come from any area to get to this point. The idea is that you have an open mind, a different kind of view, so you can, if you can understand that your knowledge can be represented as a mathematical implementation, then you can be in the area of data science and artificial intelligence in general, I think.
I want to complement what he said. I think that both are important, but the part of the critical thinking is the key point. Because in artificial intelligence, what you need to do is to ask the right question and be very analytical about what is the data that you have, and how can you combine it, and all of that information. What is it going to solve? And if you don't have the right question to ask, you can be the best one coding, and you're not going to get anything from that. Or you can have all this data and you're not going to do anything with that. So I think that the critical thinking on the students and trying to understand the whole picture and not be just very technical, but have a broader view of industry, business, and all that is the thing that actually business are looking for.
Just to add a little bit about that. I've been searching about this education and stuff, and we found like two different approaches. If you go more into coding and you start putting people to code, use APIs, like black boxes, but at the end of the day trying to understand how everything works, they are actually developing apps. So they get in touch and they get to see how Vision API works, NLP works. But on the other side, you can start onto the math approach. So you can start algebra, linear algebra and math and calculus, trying to understand how the algorithm itself works, and then trying to get eventually to some application.
So just a very quick addition to that. I'm also from NAM, and what I can recommend, and I probably cannot recommend it enough, is that you should start working cross-functional between different areas. What I used to see at the School of Sciences, and I was there for 18 years working, is that physicists and mathematicians and biologists, they are together, they have a lot of talent among them, and they have to learn how to code in order for them to do the thing, instead of going across the hall to the computer science and work together and build an amazing team. So I would recommend that. Working teams, that's how we do it, that's how everybody else does.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. First is particularly for Roberto. So, first, congratulations.
Just one question, please, for each. Just one question, please.
So maybe I go to the second, that is more to the panel. So, as maybe you heard in the previous panel, we are trying to start an artificial intelligence research institute in Mexico. And my question is coming from your companies. Would you be interested in collaborating with the center, and what would you like to get from this center?
Okay, share my experience. Like, the way that we grew so fast is by this kind of partnership. Like, we cannot do it alone. And for example, this data set that we have right now, we leverage just a small part of it for prioritization. But we can correlate this data to do analyze epidemics and drug discovery and other things. The way that we do it by partnering with universities and centers like that, and we bring challenges, and then the students of the center work 6 months with us, solving that challenges. And our developers, they give about 2 hours per week of mentorship to these students or PhDs. And this has been very rich for us. Like, a lot of things that we developed, there's not our core business, but help us to partner, to go to new clients, and all are coming to this kind of partnerships. So one suggestion will be trying to find companies that want to collaborate in a specific challenge, so we can create results very fast, not long-term, 18 months, like 6 months, 3 months challenges, and then you create value for both sides. And also try to partner with these research foundations that could fund part of your challenges.
Hi, I'm Gabriela. I want to ask you how to get in touch with big companies and how to collaborate with them. I don't know, for example, Rafael with the Sao Paulo government and those things. I don't know how to do that.
In our case, it was very key to have a lot of validation before we got to these big guys. So since the beginning, we started with these small grants. So the grants are not the money itself, but they bring a research foundation behind it. Only the logos that you're going to put there are going to help. And then when you go to do these big meetings, we take some of these guys with us. So right now, for example, after being through Google Launchpad Accelerator, to close that big deal with the São Paulo government, the head of Google Cloud Brazil went with us in the last meeting to close the meeting. So he said, we're going to take care of cybersecurity for this project. So like infrastructure and cybersecurity, Google Cloud will take care. And then we can focus on our application and like do our part of the thing. And this helps a lot to bring the validation. Same thing with the investors. When we got to the investors, we already had a lot of these logos that now I see that the money is the lesser thing. It's way more to build validation. One thing that helps as well, it's by doing co-publications, all scientific co-publications and co-ebooks, for example. So what we did, we went to the largest health insurer in Brazil. We wrote a really technical ebook, not 10 things, no, a really like well done and like design and everything. We spent like 2 months writing this book. And then we went with them and say, do you guys want to co-author that book here? But it was ready. They just review it and put the logo. It's like you cannot bring work to them. You need to already come with the thing ready and then put the logo and distribute it to like 1,000 hospitals. They are within their network. And this helped us a lot. So try to find the first ones that are close to you and they'll have a lot of intertwined goals and use that first guy to then start to build from that.
That's great, and if I can add just one thing, it's also very helpful to try to start with some little project with them and then grow horizontally. For instance, we had experiences with big companies that have small sub-products, or maybe to sell customer service for something that is internal, and then once they get to know you and the value that you can bring, then you can slowly grow to other verticals. It's typical that these companies will have many spaces that you can grow into.
The last thing, here is a nice place where you can connect with industry and academic and start building up your network.
Hi everyone, my name is Pablo Orozco. First, I want to thank all the RIIAA people. We were here last year and it's amazing how much you guys have accomplished in 1 year. So thank you very much. Yeah, we need And now my question. I know here in Mexico we are creating made in Mexico artificial intelligence, and it's great. Like just look at the students, the kind of speakers we have. And the question, and here becomes a question. Like in Mexico, are the companies buying made in Mexico artificial intelligence, or we are just waiting to the big Silicon Valley players to tell us what to buy and what to do? So are we really buying artificial intelligence made in Mexico?
I want to answer that question. We are artificial intelligence based, and we're Mexican, and all of the founders are Mexican, and it's a good question because we are looking always to Silicon Valley, and in our company, the only VC that actually invested in us was a New York fund in NYU, and also, well, the Google Launchpad was something came from Silicon Valley that helped us to network here, but the companies they're getting there and they're starting to think in artificial intelligence, but sometimes in Mexico or in our experience, they have other problems to solve more than get an AI top technology to integrate to the value added solution. So it is difficult for you all that you're going to go to the market and start like selling AI, but it is worth it when you see that a company or a Mexican company is doing something, or a Latin American company is doing something different because of your technology and is developed in Latin America. So I think that I don't know if that was the question. I think that I went the other direction, but yeah.
yeah, just to complement, I think it's really interesting. Like there is still a resistance here in Mexico, I think, to invest really in those kind of technologies. But we do have some amazing success cases. Like internally, we are a Mexican company, except me. Everybody else is Mexican. Probably not the most perfect example, but Mexicana de corazón. So yeah, like we're a Mexican company, and the companies we worked with have been basically all Mexican, right? Ragasa, Cemex, Banco Base. So our main clients for now have been Mexican. So that's pretty amazing, and I think it's a good example of what's possible. And especially to mention the cases that we developed for Cemex. We competed with companies from the States. We competed against Microsoft and other companies. And in the end, they chose us because we kind of offered a more personalized solution. So it's possible.
I have a question. So, first of all, I think this is perhaps the most beautiful panel at RIIAA because it really achieves the mission of a Latin American perspective, an international perspective. So, on that note, I would like to ask you all, how do you see Latin America? So how do you conceive it from the perspective of your businesses, right? So what are the synergies? What's the value that you can create across? Can we really think of it as one big market or opportunity to generate value? So how do you think of Latin America? How can we leverage every time more what we are as a whole?
So first, I think in the AI and standpoint, people don't realize that yet, but this kind of, like for example, the data set that we put together, 30 million people, will be impossible to put together in the North. In North America and in France with GDPR, we're working there right now and it's impossible. So the investors are noticing that. They're seeing a value in Latam right now that they can experiment and create data sets and really speed up innovation in the way that the legal framework in the North is not allowing anymore. And this is a key differentiator that we need to take into account. They help us to raise our Series B actually. And also in the terms of, as a whole, talk about the language and all, like Portuguese to Spanish, and it's way more easier to do than like Russian to English or this kind of thing. So we can leverage each other's solutions and create synergies between the companies. That is way harder to do in Europe, for example, between countries with very different languages. This is also another very... And the last point is in terms of talent. Now that I have a team that have people from different nations, and when I compare people from Europe, we hire like 10 Russian people right now, and they are very good coders. They code 3 times more lines of code per hour than the Russian guys. And also the European guys, but when they hit a point that they don't know what to do, like they freeze and scale to the manager. What the Latin guys do, they were gonna use another language, they're gonna make it work, they're gonna present, it is working, I had to use some C# here in the Java solution, but they're gonna deliver. And this kind of creativity, it's amazing when you have like a methodology that can use that. And people sometimes call this in Brazil the jeitinho brasileiro, which is like creativity. But when you apply this in very large problems that you need creativity, these guys are better than the Russians, like the Brazilians, the guys from Argentina that we have. And I think we have the underdog syndrome to think that North is better than us, and I'm seeing that it's not. We have a lot of advantages if you know how to use it and like collaborate between us.
Just to add a bit to what he have said, yes, we have a lot of talent in all the region, in all Latin America, that has been undermined because of the way of global thinking. But also there is a chance of investing from the big capitals in this part of the world. But the challenges that we have to solve as a region in artificial intelligence are different from what people from developed so-called countries. Because we have some social situations in common. Now, for example, violence, corruption, bad governments, etc., 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 that can affect the point of view of people who is developing and what are developing. We have seen during this session many natural language applications, but focused on minorities. We have a lot of languages here in Latin America, many languages, and people who has no money access to this technology. So the challenges I think, are different. The infrastructure for accessing internet, for example, everybody says, why do you need to do that if there is a global solution for that? Well, try to do it in the jungle where there is no Wi-Fi access to get to the cloud. So the technology is different, the challenges are different, so it is important for Latin American people to do Latin American solutions for Latin American needs.
Yes, thank you. We have 2 more questions, we'll make it brief. We already have people who signed up, so I think those are the last, this one and this last one.
Hi, Leo. This is for Pilar, for Carlos and Rafa. And excellent examples, no? And the question is, how we can help to these other examples, or create more examples like this that we need in Latin America in AI, no? But avoiding something like the example I'm going to mention, that is a lot of memes about that. If I ask Alexa if I ask Alexa, okay, I want a pizza, no? And it said, oh, maybe you or your father and your grandfather has diabetics, then your insurance is going to increase, not you. How do we can avoid that as developers and startups?
Well, when you're developing something, you have to be very customer-centric, because as I said in the presentation before, we're very engineer-wired when we're trying to get something to the final customer. So talk a lot to clients and try to see a broad perspective of what you're trying to solve. And yeah, that would be what I...
2 points. First, how to make it happen. Every time I'm gonna mentor a startup, what I do is like give ready examples, like she mentioned the APIs, and just point like, here's the GitHub, is the data set, just put this thing up, and you have 1 week. People think, no, I need 6 months. No, in 1 week you can have models running in production if like you really go hands-on and get out of the shelf stuff and just first training the American data set, and then you transfer learning to your data here. And there's ways to do that, a lot of techniques that facilitate you augment your data and do some steps to fine-tune to your data. And in about a week, you can reach 80%. The 80 to 95 can take the 6 months. But with 80, you have enough to at least put a dual pipeline where you have the manual process running in parallel with the ML process. You just record both in the database and compare, and this will create a baseline to the point that, okay, now I'm ready to go, and I have 6 months of data proving that, comparing things. So really go and hands-on. And about the second part, we can do a whole talk about that, ethics and bioethics in our case. Like we keep saying no to pharmas that want to acquire us, and insurers. These are the guys that, based on this data, that can change prices and stuff like that. And so in that point, I believe we need to be very loyal to our values. And this is one thing that we did, is that like we established 5 values that like even the cleaning lady voted, and everything that we do is based on these values. We derive like actions, the hiring process, and the decisions that we need to make always need to be based on these core values. And patient-centric is value number 1. And so we're never going to do something that's going to hurt our user, which is the patients, not the insurers. And of course, it's hard to do that when you have big checks in the table. But what we did is actually we talked to that pharmas. They show us how much they're gonna pay, and then we went to the social impact investors and show, here, I have a paper that showed they're worth that. Well, we didn't close with them because of the values. You need to be very strict with that, especially now that the systems are monitoring everything, every click, every audio, and all that. So in our case, we had to establish very strong anonymization layers, de-identification layers. So even before we train those models, we just like anonymize everything and really pay attention to that, which I confess was not easy, especially because I had to convince my investors to spend a lot of money on these things that are not an obligation. I didn't have to do that. There's no laws that they're like, at least in Latin right now, that obligate that. But the fact that we did that and we comply with very strong regulation, even though they're not an obligation, showed that we are serious to the biggest hospitals in Brazil. And this made us close bigger deals because we respect patient privacy. So in the end, by doing the right, it took a while. It was not like as just get the check, but then we closed to the bigger hospitals because we really was like loyal to our values. And I think this is a key thing for machine learning in the future.
One last question.
Hi, I am Juan. In your context, can you mention some interesting failure you challenged and what you learned from that?
I'm gonna do one quick and people can enjoy failures. Let me see. In the beginning, the first year, we had some ideas to create multimodality models. So it's one model that look at lab tests, imaging, and EHR. And we thought that we could create an end-to-end model to do that, and we invest a lot, about 3 million trying to do that. And I confess that as a CEO, it was my mistake because I thought that this was possible. Coming from a background of computer vision, I thought that, okay, with all this data, we can do that. And I really pushed the team to try to do it, and with like a lot of resources. And now I know that I should just listen to my users. If I had listened to the doctors and the clinics and hospitals, I would have prioritized differently and not spend that money on that. And in the end, after 2 years trying, we got to the point that we split them up, and it's just very narrow models. And years later, when we joined the Google team and like the Google Launchpad, and the TensorFlow and DeepMind guys came to try to help, even then told us like, this is the technology's not ready for that. Don't try that. But I didn't get this advice in 2014, so this was a mistake that I just followed the hype at the moment and then tried to do that. And I confess that if I had listened to the user, I would have avoided this mistake.
I have to agree with that. Our dashboard has been a series of failures because you actually have to listen to your user, and sometimes when you're making the technology, you fall in love with the technology, and then you do not see that this is not working for the final user, and you start doing a lot of things that you think that your dashboard or your technology has to have that are new features, and the core features are not even ready for someone to understand that. So yeah, I have to agree with that. It's like we went to the same lounge pad.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, super centric, customer centric.
Okay, I think that was the last question. Unfortunately, we have to close the panel. Thank you all for coming and presenting